just a couple of announcements. Servant leaders, we are meeting Sunday morning at 9 o'clock to go over a few things. Make sure you're here at 9 o'clock. We're going to try to get it started as early as we can. We can get done with it and get Sunday school on time. And then one thing that we've kind of been working on and kind of been praying about getting involved in, and it's coming up soon, so we don't get to announce it, but tonight and Sunday. Tuesday, October the 5th, I don't have the time yet. He hasn't got me the flyer. But October the 5th, there's going to be a candlelit prayer meeting at First Baptist in Cave Spring. And this is 3 churches coming together to, the way he put it, they're hosting it, but NAMI is an organization, a ministry that reaching out to families that are around mental illness. And so it's a ministry that has a large impact in Cave Spring, or a large reach in Cave Spring, or the possibility of that. So they asked us to come on and help with that, and so we've been praying on that and trying to decide what we could do. I talked to him today, and they're looking forward to having us there. So that's going to be October the 5th, that evening. That's a Tuesday night at First Baptist. I have no idea what time, so I'm not even going to take a guess, because if I tell you one thing, y'all all show up at that time, and I will as well. So as soon as I know that, I'm sure I'll know Sunday morning, but just go ahead and write that down. Tuesday evening, we're going to meet at First Baptist and having a combined service with them, a prayer service, and to kind of help this organization that's known as NAMI. And so we're excited about that. Anything we can do as a community, we're excited about, and just the possibility to do that, and hoping that opens up more doors in the future, working with them and being a community-wide church instead of just each individual church competing and doing their own thing. We have a much larger reach if we're working together and teaming up with other churches and other pastors and stuff like that. We can get a lot more done with a combined effort than just each individual church can. So that's what we're excited about. So that's coming up on Tuesday evening, October the 5th. So just go ahead and write that down. Wanted to go ahead and announce that since we waited till the last minute to get that out there to you. All right, so tonight we're going to keep going with our counterculture. We finished up abortion last week. So I know that's a tough subject to get through. And again, there's, I think Platt did this on purpose. He kind of goes through and alternates the kind of really touchy stuff. Abortion is a hard thing to talk about, and something I know it's really touchy in our society now, but it's something that we need to know about. It's something that we need to be educated on when it comes to what the Bible says and what we need to be doing as a church. That's the whole idea of this study, is what are some things that we as a church are retreating on? What are some things that we are ignoring, which is a form of retreating? What are some things that we have bent our views on when it comes to biblical content, what the gospel says about it, how should we be operating? So we've covered poverty, we've covered abortion, and tonight we're going to go into something for the next couple of weeks and look at something that isn't as exciting. When I say it, it's not something that's going to be, it's been in the news here lately or anything like that, but it's something that the Bible covers a lot, and it's something the Bible talks about quite often, and it's something that I couldn't tell you if I've ever heard a sermon on it or it ever mentioned in a church other than in passing when reading Jesus' conversations or something like that. But it's never been something that we have sat down in a meeting and said, hey, we need to do a better job at this, or we need to stop retreating here. And the reason it's absent from churches is not because the problem has gotten better or changed over time. In fact, the thing we're going to talk about tonight is more of a problem now. It's more of a common problem now than it was back then when Jesus was ministering to the world in person. And that topic, that thing that we're retreating on, is the orphans and widows. You hear Jesus talk about orphans and widows. You read about it in the Bible, and you see the need, and you hear the urgency behind it in the Bible and in Jesus' teachings. But when was the last time you heard us as a church say, hey, we need to be doing more work in the community for the orphans and the widows? We just don't. We kind of sweep that under the rug. You're kind of maybe sensing a theme here. I love statistics. Statistics kind of put everything in view for you and help you understand or understand the significance of the problem. According to David Platt in the book Counterculture, he said that right now in the world there are approximately 153 orphans, 153 million. It's going to be one of them nights where I'm having trouble even speaking English. 153 million orphans in the world. That's children who have lost at least one parent. 153 million orphans in the world right now that have lost a parent, that are sitting there in need and are struggling. And what are we doing as a church to help that? Right? As I said, the Bible's very clear, and the Bible covers widows and orphans a good bit. And we as a church just kind of overlook it. We've got a few texts here I want to look at, and then the last text we're going to read, we're going to stick with for a minute and take it apart and kind of look at what is being said here. But the very first verse I want to look at is Deuteronomy 10, verse number 17 and 18. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great, the mighty, and the awesome God, who is not partial and takes no bribe. He executes justice for the fatherless and the widow, and loves the sojourner, giving him food and clothing. Psalm 68, verse number 5. These are just some examples of verses in the Bible that we have over and over and over of widows and orphans. Verse number 5 in Psalm 68, Father of the fatherless, protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. Exodus 22:22. You shall not mistreat any widow or fatherless child. Isaiah 1:17. Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause. All right? And then this one I want to sit on for just a minute and look at. James chapter 1, verse number 27. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. All right, so let's look at that one more time. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Right? That first phrase, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this. James is making the argument that it's not that taking care of widows and orphans is an important part of being a follower of Jesus. James is making the case that it is necessary to be a follower of Jesus, that it is so important that it is necessary. In fact, it is the thing that he mentions when you're looking at pure, undefiled religion. In other words, completely selling out to God, completely giving your life to Christ. He says if you really want to have true passion for the Father, you really want to follow Jesus as closely as you can, it's necessary that you take care of the orphans and the widows in their affliction. Now, I don't know about you, that seems a little strange to me when I'm thinking about all the things that we're told in the Bible that we are to do and all the things in the Bible that we're told that we shouldn't do. Out of everything that he could have come up with, James in verse number 27 says, in order to have true, pure religion, in order to truly give Christ your life in the way that you're supposed to, the one thing you really got to nail down is you got to be making sure that you take care of the orphans and the widows. It seems strange to me because I agree. I just like all the other things we've covered, if you were to take a poll out here tonight and ask everybody, hey, do you think that we as a church should take care of widows and orphans? Every single one of you would say, of course we should. That sounds like a great idea. But if I were to ask you, hey, the one thing that as a follower of Christ that we need to be doing, the one thing, if there's one thing we need to do, it's to take care of widows and orphans, y'all I'll probably kind of raise your eyebrow a little bit and think, I don't know if that's the one thing, right? There's a lot of stuff we should be doing. That's not the one thing that jumps off the page. But that's exactly what James is saying. He's saying, look, we need to be doing what we can to take care of the widows and orphans. If you want to be a follower of Jesus, if you want to give your life to God and you want to truly live a life of pure, undefiled religion, we need to be doing these two things. Visit the orphans and the widows in their affliction and keep oneself unstained from the world. So let's dive into those two things because they obviously seem very, very important. The first thing he mentions here, visit orphans and widows in their affliction. I think the key phrase in this text is in their affliction. The big problem we have in the area of widows and orphans, the first thing is, if they're not in this church, we don't mess with them. When was the last time that this church, we'll speak for our church as a local church, the Live Oak Baptist Church, when was the last time you remember that we reached out and we helped a widow or an orphan that had no connection to our church? They're not in your family, they're not in your friend circle, and they're not members here, right? We do a good job of taking care of our people. We're out when somebody passes away, when a loved one passes away, a friend, a church member, somebody like that. We do a good job of extending the church hand and reaching out and serving the way that we've been taught to serve people, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. But that it's rare, if it's ever happened, that we reach out beyond our church circle and help a widow or an orphan, right? We do a good job of taking care of our people, but not so much people outside of our circle, and that's a problem, because we're not told to take care of just our widows and orphans. He says the widows and the orphans. In other words, those that are in need, those that need help, those that are struggling, those that are missing something in their life. We need to go above and beyond and help them. The other problem is this. When it does come to helping those that are in need, the widows and the orphans, what exactly does visit widows and orphans and widows in their affliction mean? Because we've been taught, we've been raised up in church. A lot of us have been raised up in church. Most of us have been raised in the South. We understand visiting the widows and the orphans in their affliction is this. Let's cook them a casserole and take it to their house and give it to them. And get as many over there as we can the first 2 nights when they're having funerals and all this stuff going on, or they're struggling. Let's throw as much food out of them as we can. Let's call them. Let's check on them. Let's send them a card. We'll send them some flowers from the church. And that all happens in the first week. And then after that, what? Nobody takes care of the widows and the orphans in their church better than the Southern Baptists do for the first week that they've lost somebody. I mean, we smother them to death. Right? We get on the phone, we make sure everything's taken care of, we cut the grass, we do all these things, but after a week's gone, that just kind of falls apart. So that even the widows and the orphans that we do help, that help reaches out until it starts to interfere with our life, or we get tired with it, or our life just continues to roll on, and we just kind of support them less and less and less and less. The problem with that is, after this time rolls on, after our lives go back to normal, after we begin to get covered back up in our life and get busy with work and with school and all these other things, the person that we were helping, the person that's in the middle of their affliction has not ended. Just because we gave them plenty of Bojangles chicken doesn't mean their affliction was cured. They're still sitting in the middle of affliction. In fact, the worst part, if you've ever lost someone, is after everybody goes away and it's just you. And you're sitting at home by yourself, or you're sitting at home and you begin to fill that hole in your life, and that hole is still there. And what do we do beyond that? What does the church do? What do you do as an individual? What do I do as an individual to help the widows and the orphans after that first week, when there's still somebody there that is feeling the hurt, feeling the hole that is left behind emotionally, physically, spiritually? They've lost someone in their life, and it's real. And it's an affliction, and it needs someone to help. That responsibility falls on the church. We have, you look around and you notice all the government help that we have going on, right? And all the stuff that the government hands out, and all the programs we have, all the funding, all the grants, all this stuff. All those things exist because the church doesn't do its job. All right? If the church, our church, if the local church, if the Church of America operated the way that it should, do you realize that the government has zero business helping or granting or serving anybody? That's created, that's happening because we are not doing what we should be doing to serve those in need. The responsibility to take care of those that are needing something, that are feeling the hole physically, emotionally, financially, whatever, that falls on us as a church to take care of those people. We're not doing our job. We're falling short of that. We're refusing to help those that are hurting, those that are in need, those that are missing someone in their life. The second part of this text, it kind of sticks out a little bit. He says, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Now, we read through this text, and we do this a lot when it comes to Scripture, and it comes to when you hear Paul or James or whoever begin to list things or include things, and we read that and we think, well, that's, it's kind of weird that God, that he says that in order to really follow God, we have to visit orphans and widows, that's the number one thing. And then he throws in this bonus thing of keep oneself unstained from the world. And we have to be careful because he's not listing two things here, right? We have to always, when we're reading Scripture, now there's lists and there's stuff that we need to dig into, but this verse is a great example of this. Always put things into context. All right? Always read things in context and ask yourself, okay, what did he mean here? Are those two separate things, to take care of the orphans and the widows, to keep oneself unstained from the world, or do these two things go together? Keep oneself unstained from the world. The system that we live in this society, in America, we cater a good deal to the rich, the wealthy, the powerful, right? We give them all of our attention. We give them all of our praise. We give them all of the glory. We spend all of our time catering to the wealthy and the powerful, and that puts priority one on that group. The 0.01%, right? The people who have everything that they could ever need, the people who have everything they could ever want. We glorify them all while neglecting the people that are in need. Ignoring those that have not. Ignoring those that are hurting. Ignoring those that actually need something. We glorify TV stars, sports stars, political figures. We glorify musicians. We've created this new character now that's an influencer. Somebody that's really good at YouTube or Twitter or Instagram that just gets on there and talks about a product, and we drool all over those people like you wouldn't believe. It drives me crazy to sit at home and watch Hollis watch video after video after video of a kid that lives in California that plays with toys and makes millions and millions of dollars. I don't get it, but that's what we do. We love that kind of stuff. We glorify those people. We give them our money. We give them our support and all of that stuff. The world's mindset is this: what can you do for me? That's how the world operates. The world goes out every day and asks itself, to everybody that you come in contact with, what can you do for me? Right? We glorify the powerful, we glorify the rich, we praise them, we give them our money, because in our mind, without even realizing it, without even recognizing it, those are the people that have the potential to benefit us. Right? Following them or liking them makes us fit in better, or it makes we have something to talk about. We just spent time talking about Freddie Kitchens. I'm sure he's the only time he's been mentioned in church tonight. We all these sports figures, all these musicians and stuff, we spend so much time talking about them and celebrating them. We buy their posters, we buy their jerseys, we buy their autographs, we buy their TV shows. We do all these things and glorify them because they have the potential to benefit us, and the world lives in that mindset. What can I get out of this? What entertains me? What makes me feel good? What makes me feel special? What benefits me the most? Let's just grab somebody out of thin air. LeBron James. All right, let's think about that guy, because that guy's out there in everything. Whether it's basketball, which is what he's known for, he's on everything. He was on Monday Night Football the other night. I mean, that guy's everywhere. But let's think about LeBron James, or you could plug in anybody, any musician, any influencer, any sports athlete, anything. Is there anything besides a sports athlete? Is there a different kind of athlete? No? The sports athlete. That sounds like I know nothing about sports. One of them sports athletes. Yeah, sounded real cool, Rick. Anyways, LeBron James, basketball athlete. What does that guy need from you? Because I'm not picking on Slade, but Slade watches a lot of basketball. Dawson watches a lot of basketball. I don't watch a lot of basketball. But without even noticing it, you guys give them tons of money because you pay and you buy the products and stuff. Me, the Braves, what does Freddie Freeman need from me? Nothing. But I've gave that guy, I don't know how much money. I don't know if it's hundreds of thousands, whatever, by watching his games, by going to his games, by buying merchandise. We support and we give to these people that they don't need anything from us. There's nothing that you can do to help LeBron James out. If you were to go out right now and decide, I'm going to help LeBron James because I like LeBron James so much, I'm going to do everything in my power to help that guy out. It does not matter. Anybody in this room, unless you've completely fooled me, there's not an amount of money that you have that you could gather up and give to him that would even be a blimp on his radar. He doesn't need you. He doesn't know you exist because he has done so well for himself that he does not need our help. So why do we spend so much time pouring into those people that do not need us when we could be taking that same effort and pouring it into people that actually do need our help? And that's what we're doing as Americans. That's what we're doing as supposed followers of Jesus. We have people in this country and in this world that really need our help, that really need to be poured into, that really need something from us. But we're too busy living in such a way, asking ourselves, what can you do for me? That we never one time ask ourselves, what can I do for you? How can I rearrange my life to make sure that I'm pouring into you and serving you in such a way that I'm promoting Jesus? Because that's exactly why we exist. That's what we're here for. True biblical religion doesn't cater to the rich and the ones that are already taken care of and the ones that are in need of nothing. True biblical religion, if you want to go back and look at the life of Jesus, if you want to go back and look at any of Paul's teachings or look at James's teaching that we just read, true biblical undefiled religion caters to those that are hurting, those that are in need, those that need the church. Not those that need not those that the church that doesn't need the church or bigger than the church or have everything that they could ever need. We're supposed to live a life that's different than them. We're supposed to be pouring into those that doesn't have anything, that do not have whatever it is that they're lacking. In order to remain unstained from this world, we have to live different than the world. Living different than the world looks like catering to those, serving those, loving those that need us the most. A complete 180, a complete opposite lifestyle than the way the world is living, right? Those people are orphans and widows. Those are the people that need the church the most, right? Those are the people that are hurting and suffering tonight as we sit here and we just ate a delicious meal. And we're all fine and healthy. The people that really need us right now are not on playing the Phillies right now. They're not basketball players. They're not singers. They're not anything like that. Real people that live in our community and out of our community, but there's people in our community that we could directly help immediately. We're not, because we're asking ourselves the wrong question. We're asking ourselves, what can you do for me, when we should be asking ourselves, what can I do for you? What can I do to serve you? What can I do to make your life a little bit easier, to relieve a little bit of your pain or to take away a little bit of your suffering? I gave you the number for the orphans. 153 million orphans in the world right now that have lost a parent or lost at least one parent. Some both parents. Some have no parents whatsoever, living in foster care or adoption or whatever, or homeless. There are kids all around the world that are without a parent or both parents. The number of widows in the world right now, 245 million widows. He said out of those, 115 million of those, so 115 million widows, are living in poverty and suffering from social isolation, meaning there's nobody there to help them. They have zero help, zero support from anybody. They've lost their husband, and they have nobody to take. Now, nobody can ever take the father or the husband's role, but nobody to help alleviate that hole, that gap that's missing in their life. These are children of God. These are women and kids and people that God has compassion for, that loves, that cares for. So shouldn't we as a church also have compassion? Shouldn't we as a church also love? Shouldn't we as a church also be asking ourselves, what can we do to help them? The question at the end of the day, and the question we're going to look at for the next couple of weeks, is not what should we do, it's why are we not doing it? Because I think we know what we need to do. We're just doing nothing. So that's what we're going to look at when it comes to the orphans and widows that we have greatly retreated on as a church, not as this church. We have as our church, but as a church as a whole, we've greatly dropped the ball. Brother Jimmy, will you close in prayer tonight?